What's up, everybody? Welcome to Move the Sticks, presented by Zaxby's. Daniel Jeremiah, joined by my buddy Bucky Brooks. Bucky, what's going on, man?
Man, I'm excited. Obviously, the season is upon us, and so we finally get a chance to talk about the sport that we all know and love.
Yeah, we've got a lot of ground to cover today. Really looking forward to it. We have a conversation with our good friend Mike Mayock, the general manager of the Las Vegas Raiders, to talk to him a little bit about the challenges of trying to not only scout the rest of the league, but scout your own team in the absence of a traditional offseason and a preseason. So we're going to visit with Mike a little bit later on in the show. We're also going to talk about the influence of the college game to the NFL game. We've seen a lot of that over the last few years. But Buck, at the top here, we've got a unique situation with a rookie in the NFL this year, and that's Tua Tagovailoa. And it's not because of where he came from in terms of the University of Alabama or what his credentials are. It's the fact he's left-handed. We do not see a lot of left-handed quarterbacks in the National Football League, Bucky, and we decided to do a little bit of a deep study on this. Just your takeaway off the top here on what it means seeing another left-hander come into the league.
I mean, it's very impactful on a couple different fronts. It affects the play caller because you have to flip your mind because you're so used to building offenses around right-handed passers, and then it changes the way that your pass catchers have to get down and do their business. And so even though you can see a very talented left-hander, there are a lot of things that go into play in terms of getting him ready to play and getting everyone else adjusted to someone who has a unique game.
It's just very rare. It's just very rare in the NFL. You watch Major League Baseball, you see left-handed pitchers every day, along with right-handed pitchers. In the NFL, we just don't see a lot of left-handed quarterbacks, which got us thinking, what are all the differences with having a lefty in there? And we decided to kind of use our resources here at the NFL Media Group and reach out and find people that would know this topic better than anyone. And we found 5 to visit with us on this topic. Enjoy.
Young goes back to throw, sends it way downfield. John Taylor is there, into the end zone. Touchdown, 49ers.
With time looking long down the field for Jimmy Smith, who's got separation, and he makes the catch. Touchdown!
Vick firing to the near side to Selleck. He's in! Touchdown!
Mike, you're a member of a very exclusive club, and I'm not talking about a Pro Bowl quarterback or someone that was runner-up for the Heisman Trophy. I'm talking about left-handed quarterbacks. There are not many of you guys out there. We got a new one now in the club with Tua Tagovailoa coming into the NFL. What was the biggest challenge, or maybe the biggest difference for you as a lefty?
My coach is always thinking that they had to run everything to the left side of the field. Like, coach, I'm ambidextrous. I can do it all. Like, go right because the defense think I'm coming left.
Go, Mike Vick! This is over! It's over!
I had that fight with several coaches, and they do it for a comfort level, but it's up to you to let them know that I can do it from the left side or right side. I know I was more accurate throwing passes to my right side across my body than I was to the left side. So, if I had like a deep over route going to my right, coming across my body just felt more, my legs and my base to make that throw to the left. Sometimes it was difficult for me. I found a way to get it done. I love the fact that Tua is in the league. He reminds me so much of Steve Young. And when I look at what he's been able to accomplish, just the way he's set up in the pocket, his base, it's just a quick in and out motion. If you watch it over and over again, it's not a long, winding throw motion. I felt like I was accurate as a left-handed quarterback, but I wasn't Steve Young accurate. I wasn't even Mark Brunell accurate. He kind of looked like Mark Brunell as well.
Mark turns, looking for Jimmy in the end zone. Touchdown, Jaguars!
In your mind, when you work with teammates, how have you had to help them adjust to the ball coming out a little differently because you're left-handed as opposed to right-handed?
The good receivers, the guys that could catch. And believe it or not, there's some guys in the NFL that aren't as good as others at catching the ball. The good ones never had a problem with it. I was fortunate to have Jimmy Smith and Keenan McCardell and some real good receivers in my time. And those guys never one time said that you had to adjust, the ball does this. They just found a way to catch the ball. Now, there were some guys that didn't stick around very long that had a tough time catching a left-handed ball, and because they had to adjust to me. I wouldn't change it for them. That would have been impossible. But they didn't stick around very long if they couldn't catch the messed up spin. But But listen, if you're a good receiver, it don't matter which way it spins. You find a way to catch it.
And then I had Mark Brunell over there in Green Bay when we were together. I had Steve Young, and it is a challenge. And if your backup is left-handed, like Brunell was, okay? You remember when Favre was starting, and then we had two backups. We had Ty Dittmer and Mark Brunell, and we couldn't decide who should be the backup and who should be the third guy who's inactive. So what we did, we alternated. But that messes you up because when you're on the goal line, you don't run past 6'4" U corner quarterback, one way, and then you got to practice the other way for the left-handers that you do sprint right option, sprint left option. You got to flip your play action and movement, and that's a third of your package, maybe more. And you simply have to flip them over right and left if you're right-handed or left-handed. So it creates a little bit of a practice issue. The ball spins different. It's different for the receiver. It's just like a left-footed punter. Left-footed punters are hard to catch.
Yeah.
You ever returned punts? You did.
Yeah.
And the ball spins wrong.
What's the differences with the ball coming from a left-hander as opposed to a right-hander?
Because it moves the other way. I don't know, Bucky, if you've ever tried to catch a punt from a left-footed punter. With a punter, when they punt it, and you're used to the ball going up and sort of curving off to the right? And so when it's a left-footed punter, it does the opposite. It comes up and goes this way. So the difference between the two can be 5 or 6 yards, right? So you're looking at, instead of it being 3 yards this way, it's 3 yards that way on the punt. Well, the same thing happens on deep balls with a left-handed quarterback. So now, instead of the natural curve coming off this way, the curve is coming off this way. And so balls that you ordinarily would wait and fade over your shoulder and try and catch, now all of a sudden are being caught in front of you. And so it's a difference.
I want to get up the field a little bit because what happens is he releases me and runs behind me. So when I stop, try and pull back through him, he's in front of me,
But probably the hardest thing for me was the rotation of the ball.
It's a little bit different of a dynamic. The ball comes out of our hands a little bit differently, and it comes from a different arm angle and slot.
So from a right-handed passer, you're predominantly catching the ball with your right hand.
Deep for Collinsworth, he's open. Got it, what a catch. Going downfield, looking directly back over his hip.
So that to me always felt like the pressure point of catching the ball from a right-hander. So your whole life, that's all you did. You just caught the ball, sort of with your right hand 3/4 and your left hand 1/4.
Yeah, I don't know. I often ask my receivers if it was that much of a difference catching the ball for me. After about a week, they got used to it.
Now a left-handed quarterback comes along, and now you're catching it 3/4 with your left hand and 1/4 with your right hand, which is completely opposite of what you're used to doing over the entirety of your career.
If you're not used to playing with a left-hander, I could see how that could be a little bit uncomfortable at the beginning.
And plus, Boomer threw the ball about 400 miles an hour. He threw everything a little bit high.
Chris Collinsworth used to complain that I threw the ball high.
And it was, the first game he ever played that we ever played together with him as a starter, he threw me 17 passes in that game. And about the third one was so high, and I jumped up, and the guy did the old flip me over thing. And by the end of this game, the next day, he sent a masseuse to my house.
And I would just say, just go up and get it, for God's sake. That's what we're paying you for.
Tagovailoa trying to make up for it. Fires to the end zone. Touchdown! Alabama wins!
When you watch Tua down at Alabama and you watch the guys, he's got 2 great wide receivers playing with him, and they don't seem to have a problem. And the reason they don't have a problem is because he's so highly accurate, and he throws such a catchable ball. The ball just kind of melts in their hands when it hits them. And very rarely is he off target. And if he is off target, it may be an inch here, an inch there, maybe a back shoulder throw or something. So the dynamic really doesn't change that much. It's just, I don't know why more left-handers aren't playing quarterback. I don't know if it's something at the youth level, but I never thought of anything but being a quarterback. I started playing when I was 10, and I was a quarterback from the first day and until the last day I walked off the NFL football field.
Very thankful to have those guests to visit with us there. You heard Boomer there finishing up, Buck. But when we look at Tua, we talked about how rare it is to see left-handed quarterbacks, but it doesn't look like he's going to be playing much early in the season. But what is your expectation for him going forward with the Dolphins?
Well, I think when he is fully comfortable in this offense, I think he has the opportunity to be a superstar at the quarterback position, meaning he is a quick rhythm thrower. He can get the ball out of his hands. He does a great job of putting it in the strike zone. And I just think with Chan Gailey, who I believe is the perfect quarterback whisperer for him because of the simplicity of the offense and the way that he has been able to help other quarterbacks succeed, I think Tua Tagovailoa is going to be a top-end quarterback.
Yeah, if you watch any SEC football games, when there's fans in the stands, you'll hear the chants of SEC, SEC. If you're watching the Dolphins from your couch this year, when Tua finally gets out there, you're going to be chanting RPO, RPO, because that is what he does better than anybody I've ever seen. That in this short history we've seen with the run-pass option game, his ball handling, his just quick release, putting the ball on the money, going to just wear you out with those slants like they did at Alabama. That's where he is most comfortable, and I would imagine Chan Gailey will incorporate a lot of the RPO game with Tua. And if they do that, Buck, I think he's got a chance to be successful. Personally, I don't anticipate seeing him for the first 6 to 8 weeks of the season. I think if you're going to see Tua this year, it probably comes in the back half of the season. How about you?
I think that's what it is, because Ryan Fitzpatrick has played really well, and he's played really well under Chan Gailey too. And I think that is important to note. Ryan Fitzpatrick has been a starting quarterback for Chan Gailey at a couple of different spots. He is going to get every opportunity to be the starting quarterback, and unless he falters, we may not see Tua Tagovailoa until the second half of the season.
Yeah, and look, it's just challenge. It's a challenge for rookies this year, minus the offseason, to be able to get out on the field. Joe Burrow, he's going to get that opportunity with the Bengals, but I don't anticipate seeing Tua or seeing Justin Herbert with the Chargers anytime soon. Well, I mentioned just a minute ago, Buck, about the RPO game and how successful Tua has been in that offense. That's something we've seen carry over from the college game to the NFL game, and as you'll see when we come back, that is a trend that is only going to continue. Let's keep the conversation going here. And Bucky, I think a lot of people, when they watch the game of football at all levels, I think there's a misnomer out there that the influence starts at the top and trickles down to the lower levels. But that, as we found out, is not necessarily the case, is it?
No, it absolutely is not the case. We're now seeing high school football impact college, and college football has really taken over the National Football League. It is certainly different to see it go from the bottom to the top, but the game is certainly changing, and the lower levels are having a big impact and influence as to why.
Yeah, it's a topic that we discuss all the time on the Move the Six podcast. We've had a chance to visit with some high-powered guests to get their thoughts on the topic of the influence working its way up instead of working its way down.
He'll take the deep shot. What a play! Touchdown! Mahomes to the end zone. Wide open for Mahomes and for the touchdown.
It's more and more apparent that Sunday football is beginning to look like Saturday football, meaning the NFL is kind of morphing into the college game. So when you're doing your work at PFF and even preparing for your thing at Sunday night, how much of the college game is blending into the NFL?
Well, I think it all really kind of started with maybe the Wildcat, the RPO stuff, the running quarterbacks. I mean, how many of these guys, Patrick Mahomes, Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, I mean, they're all doing kind of that RPO-ish looking thing, but they're just handing the ball off, right? That's all they're doing. They're just handing it off until it's 4th down and 2 in the 4th quarter and the game's on the line. And if you watch the Kansas City Chiefs tape in the Super Bowl, how many times did a new wiggle on an option look come into play? You know, I was watching Andy Reid, and what looked like it was going to be a read option kind of a look. Instead, the running back took one step in, Mahomes faked the ball to him. The defensive end, who now had responsibility, who usually was crashing in on the running back because Mahomes wasn't tackling it, now that running back took a step and flared wide, and he froze. Mahomes took a step towards him and made a pitch. He made so many plays on option kind of looks on 4th down or on the big moment plays where you then are willing to say, all right, I'm going to put my running quarterback skills in play, but only in those moments in the game. So now the 49ers defensively, they have an entire game plan because he's just going to hand this ball off. He's not really going to keep it. We're going to go crash the running back. But when the game was on the line, Patrick Mahomes was in play off that option.
Bill Parcells used to say we're captives of what the colleges send us. Well, the colleges are sending us quarterbacks who can run the option and throw like the they had the man with the golden arm, and so they're going to send us strong safeties. I think. Who is that guy? Well, it's Simmons from Clemson, who can play that role. And I've said, I was, for good or for ill, I think Simmons is a strong safety. He's not a linebacker. He's a strong safety in the modern game. And if you want to play him back, as Clemson did at times, they played him back deep in cover 2. That's great too, and that's a bonus. But if he can do those things around the line of scrimmage and still play good zone defense, I think that guy is invaluable.
Are you surprised, having been in the league, that you're seeing so many NFL teams kind of welcome some of the things that we're seeing in the college game?
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I think coaches realize that you have to do what your players can do. And if you get a great player out of the college ranks and he's a guy that's going to be a difference maker for you, then you have to figure out what he does best, and then you have to implement those things. And one thing the NFL is the coaches they're great at. It's a copycat league, and they're not just copying other teams in the NFL, but they're just scouring and just studying college tape to try to find a winning edge. And so, and college coaches do that as well in terms of the NFL. So you get a lot of sharing of ideas, best practices, finding out what works. And at the end of the day, coaches want to win, and they really don't care what it looks like. And if it's empty and throwing the ball all over the lot, or if it's 3 yards in a cloud of dust and 22 personnel, that's what it is. Whatever's working, and it's whatever your players can do.
Coach, along that line, I would be curious to just know, when you were at Alabama, when you were at Georgia, and you guys were seeing all these athletic quarterbacks and just being around Nick and also with Kirby and yourself, were NFL teams coming to you guys to try and figure out how to deal with some of these things as they were making their way to the NFL?
There's no doubt that there was a lot of NFL coaches calling and said, "Hey, what's going on with this RPO business? How do you stop that? You know, rezone, RPO, this, that, you know." And so in that regard, it kind of the RPO game kind of trickled to the NFL, you know. And so I've had a lot of discussions with NFL coordinators and coaches about how do you stop the quarterback run game? How do you deal with the RPOs? And they don't necessarily like some of the answers that you give them. But when you turn on the NFL tape, you know, that next season, you see that they're actually doing what you talked about.
You know, Coach, one of the fun things in talking to NFL coaches is to kind of pick their brain on what they're looking at. And I had a chance to talk to several offense coordinators who told me they've been poring over Oklahoma tape. So when you think about the next level in the NFL, are you surprised to see more college concepts kind of leak into NFL playbooks?
That's been good to see. Honestly, I know earlier in my career, it certainly felt like that, you know, if you didn't run like an NFL or what quote unquote pro style offense in college, that it's almost like you're playing two different games, and there was really like no correspondence with those guys. There was, it was interesting. There was just very few guys in the NFL that would even, you know, talk to you or want to have a conversation or talk ball. Again, it was almost like you're playing two different games, and so it's been fun to see. You know, I think the league kind of head that direction. I've enjoyed it because it's honestly made pro football, I think, more fun to watch. I think it's certainly opened up the lines of communication, and being able to talk ball with some of the best minds in the NFL has been something we've been really excited about. And I know it's certainly helped our players. So I think not only, you know, a goal of ours here is not only to have players that get drafted high and have a great initial opportunity, but also like what's your success rate, what's your batting average on that? Are your players getting there and producing and getting off to good starts? And I think that's helped a number of our guys, because a lot of things they're doing here, they feel some type of carryover when they get to their pro team.
Yeah, you can definitely get a sense there, Bucky, of all these ideas and thoughts that have made their way up to the National Football League level. And I think a lot of the people producing these thoughts are going to be attractive to teams looking to hire coaches in the future as well. I think you're going to see a wave of some of these college coaches making their way to the National Football League.
Yeah, but let's call it like it is, DJ. College football, high school football, it's quarterback friendly. It's designed to make the game as easy as possible for the quarterback. And with so many young quarterbacks being asked to come into the National Football League and play, it only makes sense for coaches to start utilizing some of the things on the lower levels to help their young quarterbacks get off to great starts.
Yeah, get them up and running. The days of being able to sit guys for 2 and 3 years is over. You got to get them on the field, make them comfortable. And these offenses they've played in since they were in junior high school have now made their way to the National Football League, and it has really smoothed over that transition. Well, one guy who's going to be making the transition from the college level to the NFL level is the #1 pick from last year's draft, and that is Joe Burrow. We're going to put him under our spotlight next. All right, now it's time for our player spotlight presented by Zaxby's. And Bucky, Joe Burrow went from somebody who was a fourth, fifth round pick probably going into his final year at LSU to vaulting himself not only to a Heisman Trophy and a national championship, but to the #1 overall pick in the draft to the Cincinnati Bengals. Looks like, as we all assume, Buck, he is going to be the starter here from day one with the Bengals. What are your expectations?
Look, I expect him to have a very, very solid season. And the reason I think he's going to have a solid season is because I think Zach Taylor is going to put him in the right position to get off to a fast start, meaning they're going to do a lot of the things that he was able to do successfully at LSU. He has a solid supporting cast around him. A.J. Green, if healthy, is the #1. Tyler Boyd, Joe Mixon was just re-signed to a mega extension. They have weapons around him. I just think Joe Burrow has to do what he's always done, and that's play pass first point guard, get the ball to the playmakers, get out the way. I don't know how many games they will win, but I think his performance will be solid.
Yeah, there's a couple things he did really, really well at LSU. You think about his ability in the quick game, right? To be able to see pre-snap, get a look, get a read, get the ball out of your hands and make plays. Then you also saw that creative side to Joe Burrow, the ability to hang back there, escape, pull out of sacks, extend plays, and make big chunk plays down the field. I think he's going to need to rely more on the quick decision making. I just don't think he's going to be able to run around and make as many plays as he did in college. I think with the defenses they're going to play, particularly in that division, he's going to have to get the ball out of his hands quickly, and that's getting a good pre-snap look, making a decision, and letting it rip. And a lot of that comes out to getting 5 guys out into the route, right? I mean, we talked about that in the spring, how much success he had being able to get everybody out and to make quick decisions. I think this offense, to quote you, Buck, I think it's kind of a spread and shred. That's what they're going to have to do.
Yeah, I think they have to do it because that's when he plays at his best. I would expect to see them go empty formations, allow him to identify where the pressure could be coming from, and then just take the easiest matchup. One thing that I will say about Joe Burrow is fearless when it comes to staring down the pressure. When blitzes are coming and guys are in his face, he doesn't flinch. And as long as he continues to have that toughness and courage, he is going to be fine. And they're going to make some plays because of his willingness to hang in there to the last second and deliver the ball on time.
Yeah, think about the success that Clyde Edwards-Helaire's running back had at LSU, being that outlet receiver out of the backfield and being able to spread him out, put him out in the route. I don't think it's a mistake when they went out and paid Joe Mixon what they just paid him because of the role he's going to be able to play alongside Joe Burrow. I think he's going to be that outlet for him. They're going to be able to get him out in the route, and he'll have a big year as well. I think Joe Burrow gets better as the year goes along, expects some struggles as you would expect early in the season. But I think by the end of the year, Bengals fans are going to be very excited about their young quarterback. There you have it. That is the Player Spotlight presented by Zaxby's. Well, Buck, a topic we've covered a lot on the podcast is talking about what we think is kind of one of the more competitive divisions in the National Football League, and that is the AFC West. And everybody's chasing the Kansas City Chiefs in the entire league, but in that division, man, that is a big hill to climb. But we do think some of these teams have done some things to close that gap at least a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to build your team to win a division. The Kansas City Chiefs are certainly sitting at the top of the mountain, but everybody is trying to make strides. The LA Chargers, you've seen the Denver Broncos, but a team to watch, the Las Vegas Raiders, because the moves that they've made and the comfort level that they're now having with John Gruden, they could be a team that is certainly ready to close the gap.
Yeah, our buddy Mike Mayock took over as the general manager of the Raiders and was blessed with a lot of draft capital and did a really nice job. Last year, that rookie class stepped right on the field, led by Josh Jacobs, had a phenomenal year. Now he's got a new group of rookies that need to step in and have an impact. And we got a chance to visit with Mike recently and not only ask him about their team, but just the challenges of trying to function in a general manager's role in the midst of a global pandemic. It was great to catch up with Mike and get his thoughts.
When you look at what's going on, Mike, I know there's no training manual for what you've been through as a young general manager when you're looking at going through a pandemic and then now what's going on in the country and what's going on in the sports world. I'm just curious who you've drawn from or who you've relied on trying to figure this thing out.
I think there's a couple things, DJ. Number one, the message basically from after the combine when we were told to go home was, as much as most people in the football world don't like change, we've done certain things for 100 years in football. But the message I had to my scouts and continue to have is embrace change. Let's figure it out. We don't even know if our scouts are going to be allowed on the road this fall at this point. And every single day we talk about it's uncomfortable, but you got to embrace it and you got to figure out ways to get your job done. And there are no excuses. And as long as all 32 teams are under the same sets of rules, we're fine with it. Let's go. That's all that really matters to me is the competitive equity. And the other thing is, there's some guys around the league that I trust and like, and maybe we're not playing them this year. And we get on the call and just talk, what are you doing? How you doing it? Is there a better way to figure this thing out? So a little bit of that networking also.
You can find the entire interview we had with Mike on the Move the Six podcast. So just go to Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, you can find that full-length interview. But Buck, when you look at what they've been able to accomplish there, I think getting faster, and that's what Mike talked about during our conversation, was a big goal, and I think they accomplished that.
Yeah, they absolutely got faster. You think about Henry Ruggs coming over, what they've been able to do on the other side with Brian Edwards, even though he's not a fast guy, but he gives them more weaponry on offense. Josh Jacobs being more comfortable in year two. And really it comes down to Derek Carr and his ability to utilize all the weapons that are available to him. If he utilizes the entire offense and lets all of the playmakers get involved, I think this Raiders offense could be one that is very, very difficult to stop.
Yeah, it was really fascinating, though, overall inside the division because you had the Broncos go out and pick up a bunch on the offensive side. You look at the Raiders with their draft, get a bunch of help on the offensive side, trying to keep up with the Chiefs in that regard on the scoreboard. Then you have the Chargers, who really tried to develop on the defensive side of the ball on free agency and going out and getting Kenneth Murray in the draft, try and slow that Chiefs offense down. But make no mistake about it, and Mike would be the first one to admit it, the Chiefs are still the top dog in this division, and it's up to everybody else to try and close that margin. It's going to be a big challenge there in the AFC West. All right, Buck, coming up here, we've got a football game to talk about. Yes, a real live football game. Can't wait. Well, we made it, Bucky. The NFL season is here, and we have an unbelievable matchup here to kick off the NFL season between the Houston Texans and the Chiefs, and really two of the most exciting players in the entire league.
Yeah, you talk about two dynamic players, and Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson. And what I want to do is I want to see what Pat Mahomes can do for an encore. I mean, look, first season as a starter, he wins the MVP. Second season as a starter, he goes and wins the Super Bowl and the Super Bowl MVP. What does he do this year? I want to see that. And then for Deshaun Watson, I just want to see if he can continue to put this offense on his back. They flipped the personnel around him. They've given him more speed on the outside. How does he take advantage of what he has at his disposal? It'd be interesting to see how this plays out on the field.
Yeah, I want to talk about Watson here for a second, because to me, I just think of when you're a kid and you go to the ice cream shop, right? And they say, you know, maybe you've been really good. Maybe your mom lets you get 3 scoops. There's some people that go there and they just get like the 3 scoops of the same ice cream, right? Just, you know, chocolate, 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 or, you know, peppermint, peppermint, peppermint. That's what the offense has been. It's been DeAndre Hopkins, the same flavor, a lot of it. It tastes really good. It's been great. But now we're starting to see, we got 3 scoops. Okay, let's get a little Oreo cookie in there. Let's get a little chocolate. Let's get a little vanilla. We can spread all this flavor out, and that's what they're going to do in Houston. They've got so many different weapons now, and they can all run. When you look at Brandon Cooks coming over, with Kenny Stills, what he can do. We know Will Fuller when he's healthy. These guys can all stretch the field, Buck. They can all make plays over the top of coverage. And you bring in Randall Cobb to do some of the work in the middle of the field. I think this is going to actually lead to the best we've seen from Watson. I think you're going to see him free and easy, and just his favorite receiver is going to be the guy that's open.
And DJ, don't underestimate the impact that David Johnson could make on this offense. And I know he hadn't played well the last couple seasons down in Arizona, but a new start, being given a different role in Houston, I think he has an opportunity to emerge as Deshaun Watson's favorite security blanket. Keep an eye on David Johnson. I think he could bounce back and reemerge as that player that we thought had a chance to be special.
And I'll go over to the Chiefs, and I look at their running back situation with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And I think he's going to kind of stake his claim on national television first game out. We're going to be talking about him as the front runner for Rookie of the Year. And it's not just going to be him running the football. It's going to be all the space with that track team that Kansas City trots out there. There'll be a lot of space for him to operate in the passing game underneath, and he's going to get a lot of yards after the catch. So I think that's going to be his coming out party. And I know some people think no offseason. We're going to see kind of a rusty first game here at the beginning of the season. I don't think so with these two quarterbacks and these two teams, Buck. I think they're going to score early and often.
Oh, absolutely. I think offenses would be a little bit ahead of the defenses. DJ, keep an eye on teams playing with tempo to try and take advantage of the conditioning or the lack thereof. Look for these offenses to play fast to see if they can wear those defenses down in the second half.
Yeah, I love that idea. I think the Kansas City Chiefs especially, because of the continuity they've had there, quarterback, play caller, head coach, most of that offense intact. I think you could see them really go at warp speed and try and wear down the Texans. Well, we made it. It's here. We cannot wait to watch that football game. And we're going to have it covered in a reactionary podcast. We're going to bring our buddy David Shaw on, the head coach at Stanford, who is one of the brightest football minds that you're ever going to listen to. He's going to join us to recap what we saw there in that opening game. So you can find that on the Move the Sticks podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you download your podcasts. That's going to do it for us today. Thank you so much for watching Move the Sticks, presented by Zaxby's.